In business news this week, 3 things to know. First, the FBI points the finger at North Korea, saying the rogue nation is behind the Sony cyber attack. Can the U.S. get the North Koreans to stop or else?
Or else what?
We will write you a letter telling you how angry we are.
And had to say today and how businesses plan to respond. Then, this holiday season, Americans are shopping for stocks. A rally fueled almost entirely by the Federal Reserve is underway, but how long can it last? And solving medical mysteries online. Is crowdsourcing health advice a good idea? Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz, and welcome to the weekend edition of Arise Exchange. Caught red-handed, the FBI Friday said North Korea is behind the cyber attack on Sony, one of the largest and most costly attacks on a major company ever. The FBI says it can link the group Guardians of Peace, which has taken credit for the attack, to the North Koreans. Among the evidence against the North Korean government, the FBI and the NSA have tracked the malicious virus used in the attack to the rogue country, that the attack is similar to one against South Korea by the North Koreans a year ago, and that the tools used by the hackers are tools known to be used by North Korea before. The attack led to the release of thousands of embarrassing emails and threats of more damage to the Japanese filmmaker and violence directed at movie theaters that plan to show the Sony movie The Interview, which is a comedy about the killing of the North Korean leader. The FBI says the attack is outside the bounds of acceptable behavior, something the president reiterated today.
They caused a lot of damage, and we will respond. We will respond proportionally, and we'll respond in a place and time and manner that we choose.
Patrick Eddington is with the Cato Institute. He's a policy analyst for Homeland Security and Civil Liberties. Patrick, welcome to Arise Exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Did the president get this right today?
Well, I think overall the answer is yes. It's a very, very difficult problem to deal with. You're talking about a fairly unprecedented attack, although, of course, there have been other attacks in the past, as I think you alluded to moments ago in your piece. This is something that will hopefully serve as a wake-up call, not simply for the entertainment industry, but for every business, nonprofit, trade association, et cetera, in this country.
Should the president, though, he says that the Sony should have called him first. Would it have been appropriate for the president to have called Sony, or would that have been out of bounds by the president?
Well, Sony's chief executive is claiming that he and his folks had actually been in contact with folks at the White House about this previously. At this point, we can't really necessarily judge the validity of either claim at this stage, but I think a higher level of leadership is going to be required here, not just from the White House, but from folks in industry as well. And I should point out that today, the Department of Homeland Security, their computer emergency readiness team, put out some details about this attack. If folks have not had a chance to take a look at that, I strongly urge them to do so. Just Google US-CERT, C-E-R-T. It's got a lot of details about the attack package that was used. If you are in the IT business for any kind of organization, if you're not getting those alerts, I strongly recommend that you sign up for them.
Sony is a Japanese-owned company. Japan, of course, is in the neighborhood of North Korea. Do you think that played a role here at all in Sony's decision?
That's a great question, and I've thought about that a lot over the course of the last several days. It is suspicious, and at the same time, if it happened, it wouldn't exactly be a surprise.
What do you okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Japan, as you noted, is in their shadow, but they're also very vulnerable to these kinds of attacks as well, and I'm sure that their government is aware of it.
Okay, so I imagine businesses are both a little scared, but do you think that they're angry as far as so far non-responsive U.S.? It is taking time to build evidence, of course. And what do you think American businesses and, frankly, international businesses want to see the U.S. do here? What can it do when the president talks about proportional response?
Well, there are a number of tools that are available to our government if we choose to retaliate in this circumstance. I would make the observation that it really doesn't matter how proportionate the United States government response is. If there is a response, if there is actual action taken against the North Koreans, whether it's a cyber attack of our own or some other kind of action, I believe, that the North Korean government will escalate this crisis. So I think we have to be prepared for this to potentially be much more than a tit-for-tat type situation. As far as what folks ought to be focused on here, again, anyone who is responsible for running a company or overseeing IT needs to step back and take a very hard look at what your infrastructure is looking like. Have you modernized? Are you taking care of all the patches you need to be doing? Do you have enough personnel on hand to help you deal with these kinds of crises and actually plan for these kinds of things? If not, you need to be doing those things. You need to be thinking about it, because we're going to hear a lot of talk, and we've already heard some talk from Senator McCain and some others about the need for Congress to legislate more in this area. I'm extremely leery about that. I'm extremely leery about the Congress trying to get involved in regulating cybersecurity as it pertains to the private sector. I think everybody should be very concerned about that. I think trying to encourage information sharing with respect to how it's done in the private sector and encouraging initiatives there, I think is a good thing.
What about Congress? What about Congress doing what it's supposed to do as far as national defense? This is a national defense issue, and there are those who say that the U.S. government is terribly unprepared for this.
Well, this has been a concern for a very long time. It's one of the reasons why the Cyber Command was established to help deal with these kinds of issues, and of course the Department of Homeland Security doing that as well. Look, the federal government has got problems here. We have sequestration in effect, which is having, I think, probably a very, very negative impact on the ability of not just the Department of Homeland Security, but all federal agencies to actually offer pay scales that would be competitive to get the kind of IT and security professionals necessary in order to make
because they earn a
overall
tremendous amount in the private sector.
Yeah,
and the government
yeah,
needs them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be something that the Congress, if there is one area the Congress should be looking at, that is it.
Okay, Patrick Eddington from the Cato Institute, thank you so much for your thoughts today. Have a good weekend.
You too, thank you.
Well, stocks wrapped up a terrific week with modest gains after that two-day surge. Let's take a look at the final numbers. The Dow finished up 26 and change to 17,804. The S&P 500 up nearly 10, and the NASDAQ up almost 17 for the week. The markets. The Dow up 429 points. The S&P 500 up better than 3%, and the NASDAQ up nearly 2%. Some major quarterly earnings reports coming out today. Troubled mobile device maker BlackBerry turned out a profit. The company reported earnings a penny a share for the quarter. Analysts had expected a loss. CarMax beating earnings expectations in its third quarter due to strong wholesale and used car purchases. EPS of 60 cents also beat estimates. And Carnival Cruises showed strong gains for the last quarter. EPS of 27 cents beat expectations on higher ticket prices and a strong spending at sea. And a look at commodities. Gold closing down 80 cents. Oil had a bit of a pop-up today, almost up 5% to 56 and change. For more on the markets now and the economy, we turn to our good friend, Kathy Boyle, president of Chapin Hill Advisors. Kathy, as always, welcome back to Arise Exchange.
Great to be here.
A lot of volatility in the market this week. Good for traders, a little bit of angst for investors. What's driving it?
Yeah, you know, we've been in a market that's gone straight up, basically. We've had very little volatility, so we've gotten very concerned, sleep at the wheel, essentially. We've gotten used to no volatility. VIX went from 11 to over 20 last week.
VIX is the volatility index.
And then it dropped big time this week, went back down to 13 is the last I saw. So a lot more volatility, a wild ride. A lot of investors don't pay attention day to day, but last week certainly shook people up. 678 points down on the Dow, but then yesterday up 400 points.
But how much is that driven? This is a Fed rally, is it not?
It is. They're calling it Santa Yellen.
Santa Yellen.
So, you know,
we're going to have to put her with a little Santa cap
little
on next
Santa,
week,
yeah, a little grandma with the Santa cap, right? So the problem is that everybody still thinks the Fed can save the day. You know, they back themselves into a corner. Somebody I read today may have to think she might release QE4.
Yeah, a new round of stimulus. But why would we need the stimulus money? I mean,
well, because everybody's gotten addicted to it, and you know, we are still the cleanest dirty shirt. You know, Latin America's dying. You know, Switzerland went to negative on their interest rate, negative 0.25 to keep money in the bank.
Europe is looking ugly.
Ruble has been dropping. You know, gold is being acquired by China and Russia, but it's still not going anywhere. So you know, it's really difficult. The easiest thing to do over the last few years, if you just bought the S&P or the Russell 2000 index and just did a 50-50 mix, you made a ton of money.
Yeah, you know, let's talk about those who run index funds and those who are stock pickers. The stock pickers have not done as well as they should, you say?
They've had a horrible time. I mean, there was an article in Barron's this weekend that went over the stock pickers and how much they've underperformed. And then a
How can you
strategies.
underperform when the market? Well, the market's up about 7% now. They've turned it around.
No,
or
it's
so?
actually the S&P is actually up 12% as of
12%,
today. Yeah, it was up 11, fell 3.5. So you wiped out 3 weeks of gains last week with one downside. So that's the thing that people are overlooking is the fear index. When the market starts to drop and it drops wickedly, people get very scared and they run for the fences. Now, we've all been trained that every dip is a buying opportunity. So that's what happened this week. And with the Fed being accommodative and saying we're going to be patient.
Do you think the Fed just didn't want to see a capitulation in the market right now?
Absolutely. They don't want to be blamed for this. You know, I mean, we're having...
Not around Christmas.
Not right. I mean, we knew that Santa rally. So, you know, there's a lot of turmoil. The bottom line with oil, though, Andrew, is the fact that we have a lot of supply and slowing demand. The slowing demand is what worries everybody because it means that China might truly be slowing. India might be slowing. They're still growing at, you know, a good clip for us, but very slow for that big a country.
But the price dropping is a result of keeping the supply levels where they are from OPEC, right? The supply-demand equation is a little bit out of whack. So we might see at some point prices come up, especially it takes some time, but as the U.S. market pulls some oil out of it.
Yes, and I just saw a report today, it's something like 40% of new wells, they've pulled them offline. And the other interesting stat is that energy only makes up 9% of the S&P on a market cap. So that sector doesn't drive performance per se, but energy companies are responsible for 30% of capital expenditures overall. So that's a big number within our economy. That's
a
scary
surprising
part.
number. 30% is pretty significant.
big.
All right, so now let's go into January. January is usually a dog of a month for stocks. How do you see it shaping up right now?
You know, at this point, the market is still in an uptrend. You know, the S&P is doing what we call a wedge pattern, so it's pushing it up.
This is a technical analysis.
Yep, it's really got to come down to like the 1800s, the high 1800s before we're really in big trouble. So we could be anywhere with a correction and still have safe still
And of course, I
uptrend.
guess the risk is a sudden interest rate hike of some sort for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Probably not much of one right now.
Right,
considering
that's
where the
less
world
of a
is.
risk because really the Fed's policy at
Patience.
this point is patience,
Yeah,
yes.
they pulled that new word out.
Yes, they're going to roll it out and be accommodative, and that sugar high is still there.
Kathy Boyle, thank you. Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Appreciate it. Coming up, it's being called the Band-Aid for the future, an invention that stops bleeding in seconds. You're going to meet the 20-year-old who invented it. Coming up on Arise Exchange.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.
And welcome back to Rise Exchange. Time now for our business ticker. Stories making headlines across the nation and the world. China has come up with an additional $300 billion in its economy from a year ago. The Chinese revising up its 2013 GDP by $309 billion. By the way, that's the equivalent to the size of Malaysia's entire economy. The Chinese government says the revision reflects its growing services industry. However, no changes were made to the 2014 estimates. Roll back Russian sanctions. French President Francois Hollande opened the door to scaling back that punishment. He is the first European Union leader to express the opinion. Hollande's flexibility is in stark contrast to Germany, Britain, the UK, the US, and others, which want Russia to comply with demands on Ukraine before lifting sanctions. And here at home, Chrysler is recalling nearly 288,000 Ram 1500 pickup trucks in North America from the 2005 model year. The government says the rear axle pinion nut came loose, sounds important, causing trucks to spin out of control. No injuries have been reported. And the Colbert Report signs off. After 9 years and more than 1,400 shows, Stephen Colbert concluded an amazing run on Comedy Central, where he played a conservative talk show host, and he pondered his next move in the last episode.
What do I do now?
Hello, Stephen.
Santa.
And I'm not alone.
How do you do?
Abraham Lincoln.
I enjoy watching your show, Stephen.
It's true. You are a unicorn.
Well, no worries for Mr. Colbert. He heads to CBS next year to replace David Letterman on Late Night. It's a product that's not yet on store shelves, but it certainly sounds amazing. It's called Vitagel, formulated to stop severe internal and external bleeding in seconds. It's a gel. It will be first tested on animals. Then after it gets FDA approval, if it does, it will be available to help humans. Earlier this week, I sat down with the company's co-founder and creator of the gel, Joe Landolina, and here is what the 21-year-old had to say. Joe, you're just out of college now, graduate of NYU. I have to ask you first if you have an interest in medical technology, and that's how you kind of found this product.
Definitely. Since I was a very young kid, I always wanted to go into medical school. And in the beginning, I just started going to engineering school as my pre-med track. And when I found this, I fell in love with it, and I ended up starting to do this full time.
Okay, so what led you to develop a gel that basically, eliminates the risk of bleeding, from what I understand?
I was really always interested in science, so I always used to play around. My grandfather had a chemistry lab that he'd let me experiment in. And one day I found two polymers that when you mix them together, they turn into a solid. And I had the idea, which was, what if you could put these polymers into a wound and seal it up very quickly? And that really got us thinking, and that got us started. And with that, we entered a business plan competition at NYU.
When you say we, who are the we?
So very early on, I met Isaac Miller, who was a business student at NYU Stern Business School. And we started the company together back in September 2010. And we entered a competition with that, and we ended up winning and getting just enough prize money to move forward.
Kind of make the product. Okay, so this is the product from what I understand. So explain to me how it works.
Exactly. So this product is a blend of two plant-derived polymers. And when they go onto a wound, they actually reassemble. So they turn into whatever you put it next to. So if you put it onto liver.
So it interacts with something in your body?
Exactly. So it'll form a mesh as it goes on. So it'll turn into this mesh onto which the body can produce fibrin, which is necessary for clotting.
Okay, so what kind of wounds? Help walk me through it. A stab wound, a gunshot wound, a sports injury?
So this works on everything from external bleeds that are arterial to even deep lacerations, or even things that are internal wounds, such as cuts to the liver, the spleen, or the kidneys, which are big problems in the surgical room.
So how are you making it right now, and how are you selling it?
So right now we have a manufacturing facility located in Park Slope, Brooklyn. And right now we're planning on moving into the animal health market by early 2015.
Yeah, because I'm wondering why this isn't in every single EMS ambulance around the country right now, if it really works. What's the approval process that you need? You say you're starting in the animal world. Talk to me about that a little bit.
So we're still waiting on FDA approval for humans, but we are ready to go for the animal health market.
What's the process like for FDA approval? I mean, what do you have to do? It's testing and retesting?
Exactly. So it depends on where you want or how you want to indicate the product. But for the military, we need something called a 510K, which is an application process that we're about a year to a year and a half away from being able to get approval.
Do you have any idea of how big this market is?
I mean, it really depends on the market. So the U.S. military market is somewhere in the ballpark of $300 million per annum. The human surgical market, on the other hand, is a $3 billion market.
Have you had conversations with the military?
So the military is interested in the product.
Okay, so what is the next step? You need investors? Do you have the money to go for the FDA approval?
So right now we're finishing up our Series A. But again,
the first round of funding, usually friends and family.
Exactly. And with that, we're going to get enough money to enter the animal health market and to move into the military.
Okay. Joe, thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much.
Fascinating. Landolina says so far the vets have given the product a thumbs up. And we have some breaking news out of Staples this afternoon. Staples is reporting that as many as 1.2 million credit cards have been taken in a data breach. The company says that malware at a point-of-sale computer took those credit cards. We'll have more as that story develops next week. Ahead, trademarking a tragedy makes one woman our favorite person of the day. You're watching Arise Exchange. Stay with us.
Apple unveiled new products today. Did it meet expectations?
Apple stock is up 20%.
The White House says it has proper measures to contain the spread of Ebola.
This seems to be, in some ways, exploding. What are officials saying?
We remain focused on working with our partners on the ground to stop the epidemic.
Enhanced measures have been put in place in Africa and the United States.
This is hitting home in a very real way, and I think, we need to be concerned.
Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Time now for our favorite person of the day, when we pick one person who grabbed our attention, not for the right reasons. Today it is Catherine Crump, a woman who decided to turn the death of Eric Garner into a business by hijacking the slogan everyone has heard by now. According to the website Smoking Gun, Crump applied for a trademark with the U.S. Trademark Office for the slogan, "I can't breathe." Garner said those words while in a chokehold by police when arrested this past summer. He later died. The trademark application is for commercial purposes and to put the phrase on hoodies, which Crump plans to sell. Now, in an interview with the Smoking Gun, she confirms she has no relation to the Garner family, but also says she doesn't intend to make money from the hoodies. A New York grand jury, you'll recall, did not indict New York police officer Daniel Pantaleo, and that set off protests around the nation. No word on whether the trademark office has made a decision on the application, but Catherine Crump, for being so classy, is our favorite person of the day. Coming up, turning to the web to solve medical mysteries. You're watching Arise Exchange. Please stay with us.
The fallout continues in Washington following Tuesday's scathing Senate Intelligence Committee report. Does this put Americans and America at risk?
Torture should have consequences. Torture is not a policy choice.
CIA managers and interrogators were uncomfortable with what they were being asked to do.
Widespread demonstrations are continuing for yet another night.
We are at a point of moral crisis. We are at a state of emergency for Black Americans here.
Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell.
If I was building my own network, it would be for the people, by the people. It would be very diverse. It would be with every culture you can think of.
If I was to start my own news network, it would reflect positive and negative within the continents and the countries around the world.
I think that I would be more looking towards young people.
If I were to build my own news network, it would look like New York City. Old, young, fresh, hip, classic.
If I was to build my own news network, I would just have people from all over who are very connected and diverse.
If I was to build my own news network, my own world network, I would love a correspondent in every country, every location, every city. I mean, it's kind of unrealistic, but how cool would it be to get local stories from the impoverished country, the impoverished city that we don't know about?
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
In tonight's corner office, getting medical help with a click of a mouse. It's called CrowdMed, a website targeting patients with a medical mystery who then get an unofficial diagnosis from a community of, quote, medical detectives. And CrowdMed has received a lot of attention from Hollywood. One of its investors is Patrick Dempsey, who's not a real doctor, but he does play one on Grey's Anatomy. The founder and CEO of CrowdMed, Jared Heyman, is here to tell us about it. Jared, welcome to Arise Exchange. You know, I think about the show House, where every week they had to solve a medical mystery. I understand you're starting this because of some personal experience.
That's right. So the inspiration to start CrowdMed was actually my little sister, Carly. She spent 3 years with a very difficult, chronic, undiagnosed medical condition. And I saw the struggle she had in the medical system. It took her 3 years, over $100,000 in medical expenses, and almost 24 different doctors until she finally got the correct diagnosis.
So how does this work? You go online and you tell your story?
So the way the process works for a patient, you start by submitting your case. We ask you questions about your symptoms, your medical history, your family medical history. You can upload test results, any clues that our medical detective community might need to solve.
And so who are the medical detectives? Are they doctors? Are they regular people?
So about 2/3 of our medical detectives are active in medicine. So these are most commonly either doctors, medical school students, nurses, but about 1/3 are other patients. And we've actually found that having that mix between medical professionals and other patients really works.
Okay, and so what's the business model? The people who are seeking the diagnosis pay for it?
Our only customers are patient. So patients can either submit their case free of charge, and a lot of them do. We also offer 3 different paid packages, beginning at $99. And for that, there's lots of other additional benefits, like a longer case duration and a financial incentive to attract the best case solvers.
Okay, but let me ask you, you have to have a license to practice medicine, and you're charging for it. How do you get around that?
Well, we make very clear on our website that CrowdMed we're not doctors. We're not in the practice of medicine. Our job is to provide a short list of diagnostic and solution suggestions for the patient to then take to their physician. But only the patient's doctor can provide a definitive diagnosis and treatment plan.
Okay, tell me about some of the success stories then.
We've had some pretty dramatic ones. At this point, we've had over 600 cases resolved on the site. Our success rate is 60%. So that's the percentage of these cases that we bring closer to a correct diagnosis or cure.
Can you talk about any of the specific ailments?
Lyme disease is something we see more commonly than others, but even that, frankly, is less than 2% of our total. So we really specialize, if you will, in solving really tough cases with uncommon conditions. So it's a very long tail kind of phenomena where we see a lot of diseases only come up once or twice over the entire history of the company.
Okay, so how are you finding people basically to become the medical detectives, and how are you vetting them? Because this is pretty serious.
Sure. Now, we take our job very seriously. And we source medical detectives from around the world. We have detectives from over 20 different countries. About 400 of them are currently active on the site. We have what we call a performance-based as opposed to a credential-based reputation system. So in our site, we don't care if you're a doctor that's been practicing 30 years or if you're a new med student. When you first join, you don't have a lot of influence. But as you prove yourself and you build up status and reputation on our site, you have more of an influence. So we really vet people based on how they do, not who they are.
One quick question. Is this something that insurance companies can one day cover?
We hope so. So right now we're working only with patients. We want to build up a critical mass and prove that the site works, which we have. But I think next year we'll probably be talking to some insurers and hope that they'll help patients cover the cost. They have every reason to.
Okay, Jared, thank you so much. Fascinating as people look for new medical options. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, thank you.
Well, next week on Arise Exchange, we're going to have the best shows for the year for the holiday, showcasing some of course, our favorite newsmakers in the world of business. Let's take a look at the markets once again. For the week, the Dow is up 430 points, up almost 2.5%. The S&P 500 up better than 3%, and the NASDAQ up almost 2%. It was a heck of a week for business news. Let's hope next week is just as good. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. Have a good weekend.